Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girl, Shanti Das, and we are back. New season of the Silence of Shame podcast. So very excited. This is 2026, and in May, it marks our 10-year anniversary of me actually starting Silence of Shame. It started just as a little hashtag, and it's been a absolute pleasure and joy to be able to do this work and to have all of you all support our efforts. And just again, thank you to everybody who's listened to the very first podcast up until now and who has supported by donating, giving of your time, volunteering, or just tuning in. And so for that, I say thank you. And welcome to the new season of the Silence of Shame podcast. I'm truly excited about this season because this season is dedicated to folks like yourself, our first responders who are on the front lines every day. And we don't often give enough time and attention. We always are calling the first responders, right? And expecting them to be there, as, you know, that's a part of their job responsibility as soon as we call them. But who's there for them, right, in times of need? And so just want to give a shout out to everybody who is currently in the position as a first responder or a former first responder. Just thank you for helping to continue to save our lives. And so we honor you this season on the Silence and Shame podcast and want to just shed some light on how, you know, the mental health is of our first responders and those that have to take care of our first responders, right, and are there for them. So I couldn't do this episode without having our guest that we have on today. She was also honored at our 2025 Silence and Shame Gala, and she is really a staple in mental health, and more importantly, just a beacon of light for our first responders here in the city of Atlanta. So I want to welcome Dr. Carla Moore to the show. Hi, Dr. Moore.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's such an honor. You really are a rock star, and you do so much work that a lot of us may not see, and you help so many of those that matter in our city, and I thank you again for that work. I'm gonna read just a little bit of your bio,
Okay.
but y'all, her bio, she is the woman, okay? She is the queen in this space, but let me just read a little bit of your bio.
Okay.
So Dr. Moore is duly licensed as a psychologist and licensed professional counselor. She has worked in mental health, y'all, for 25 years, so she knows her stuff. She also enjoys her work as the Chief Psychological Services Officer for the City of Atlanta, DHR Psychological Services Division, overseeing all mental health services provided through the Public Safety Behavioral Health Wellness Unit and the Psychological Services and Employment Assistant Program. She got a long title, y'all. Okay, but I'm so proud of her. Dr. Moore also consults with other Atlanta metropolitan public safety agencies regarding prevention, resilience, and mental health wellness for first responders. She is the current membership chair and past education chair of the IACP Police Psychology Section, an active member of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement, otherwise known as NOBLE Wellness Committee, and past Secretary Treasurer of the APA Division 18 Police and Public Safety Section. She served as a board member of the Georgia Psychological Foundation as co-chair of the Mental Health Support for First Responders Initiative. She is currently on the advisory board of the Fire Service Psychology Association. Dr. Moore has conducted research specific to racial trauma-related interventions, wellness, and cultural relevant interventions, and presented at several conferences attended by members of the IACP and IAFC on issues specific to mental health and wellness for law enforcement and firefighters. So now y'all see why, like, I had to kick this season off. Nobody better, especially here in the city of Atlanta, than you, Dr. Moore. So you were so accomplished, and again, just thank you for being here today for this important conversation.
Well, thank you again for having me. Sometimes you forget about how much you do.
And that,
So
y'all,
when you're reading it off,
that was not the full bio, y'all. That was just a little bit of it. So yes.
But I'm blessed, so thank you.
Yes, you are. Blessed and highly favored and highly talented.
That's
So you ready to jump right in?
Yes, ma'am. I'm ready to
Let's
jump
go.
right
All right, so my first question for you, Dr. Moore, is you obviously have an extensive background in mental health. How long have you been working in this space with first responders?
So for first responders, about 20 years to be exact,
Okay.
just in mental health in general for a little over 25 years. And I kind of ran into the niche of first responders.
Okay. Tell us about that.
So previously, I've been doing some work at residential treatment centers, working with youth and their families, also working with the juvenile courts and a lot of kind of the defects type entities, just trying to ensure that when there's trauma dealing with children, how to make sure that they get the support that they need. So I've always been like one to work with trauma, right?
Okay.
But as I got older and was thinking about having children of my own, I was like, ooh, that's really a heavy specialty to be in with children, or if you're having children. So tried to make a shift and explore other things to do in the mental health realm specific to trauma. And then just so happened to apply to a job at the city of Atlanta back in 2005.
Okay.
And started working with the employee assistance program. Now, a bulk of that is just mental health in the workplace and how do you help people kind of navigate that space, both work-life balance, so on and so forth. But interestingly enough, I immediately connected with our first responders,
Really?
police officers, firefighters, E911 operators, our corrections officers. It seemed that that level of trauma and that type of trauma, I don't know why it attracted me, but just saying, hey, how can I help people kind of mitigate the impact of that type of trauma? It's kind of like complex trauma.
Yeah.
And
Can you tell our listeners what complex trauma is?
Complex trauma is experiencing trauma over not just one individual thing, like I was abused as a child and this is what happened to me in this particular instance. But complex trauma being I've experienced a lot of traumatic incidents or have seen trauma or experienced vicarious traumatization just from exposure or having to do a certain thing, right? And it's almost nonstop. And having to figure out how to, because what happens is our emotional capacity change, the way our brain looks change because we are exposed to so much trauma.
Yeah.
And so people would talk about it a lot when it came to like military, the vets, but no one really talked about it a lot specific to law enforcement and firefighters, E911 dispatchers, EMT, who deal with trauma every day.
On a daily basis.
Right. For me, it was an untapped specialty because usually when people talked about public safety psychology or psychologists that do that work, it was more of them evaluating people to see if they were fit for that job or if they are like a pre-employment. Hey, does this job fit with your personality? That's how people kind of saw public safety psychology, not understanding really there's a lot of intervention that needs to happen. It's a lot of support on the front end. We were very reactive when it came to our first responders. Like we would work the trenches when something happened or crisis management. But what about the preventive piece? And I fell in love with the preventive piece. So that's I'll talk a little bit more about that. But really, that's how I began to become interested in this work and was a licensed clinician on a master's level at that time. And I wanted to really grow educationally in that area. So I got my doctorate specifically in counseling psychology with a
Dr. Carla Moore. Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
with a specialty in public safety. So yes.
That's wonderful. And all jokes aside, I think it is wonderful what you're doing. And, oftentimes, we look at those TV shows, right? The Law and Orders of the world. And, we see what our level of what we think trauma might look like, right, for first responders. But we don't see that behind the scene footage, right? You just see them out in the community in action, making it happen. But like, what is life like for them when they go home? And they're supposed to be a husband and a father, right? But or sibling or a son, and you caring for parents. But, that trauma that you keep reliving every single day, like, just God bless you for wanting to like really support that community in that way. I think it's so needed. And so kind of going into my next question, I can't imagine, seriously cannot imagine what trauma looks like for first responders. And they have to deal with it every single day and endure so much that we don't see. How has it been working in this space to help those who truly do help to save us every single day? I mean, what has that truly been like for you? Or have you seen any instances that just took your breath away?
It's been a challenge. Number one, to even get them to open up to you is in and of itself like an act of Congress. So, so again, I think honestly, I believe this is my calling because it's not easy to tap into that population. But I found a way. I think I personally connect just because of my personality type, right? So
you're easy to talk to.
I'm easy to talk to. I'm approachable. Well, this is what they're telling me. I'm approachable. I think I build rapport easily just because I try to meet people where they are. I'm relatable. So I'm a country girl. I'm from like the backwoods of South Carolina. So everybody is a person that I can get to know, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I approach my work. So tapping into their emotion and what they're thinking, that was a challenge. I think because of who I am and how much I've done, it's easier to navigate now. And I think people trust me. But that's not always the easiest. And just helping them pull back the layers, because even them recognizing that they're not doing well, it usually takes a while for them to say, you know what? I didn't even think that was abnormal for me to do A, B, C, and D. Like they don't see that, their behavior is abnormal sometimes because they just kind of, they really have to stay in a certain space in order to do their job. The desensitization piece and kind of compartmentalizing. But you still have to turn that switch off and figure out how to be human, right? So that they're heroes. I mean, they're everyday heroes. They do things that no one calls 911 when things are PG keen.
That's right.
Every time you are called to do something, it's in someone's worst moment.
Right.
So really, it's not like it's nonstop. They don't get tours of duty. Police officers, firefighters, EMTs, E911, they don't get tours of duty. They don't go in 4 years and then they're out and take a break. Not minimizing how the military does it, but just saying that, they'll work 20 and 30 years and then they'll realize why when they retire, they feel the worst they've ever felt in life. You think a person would be happy to retire, but they don't know what to do. Their brains changed, right? They're chemically different. Their life is changed as it pertains to the people around them. So really kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of, hey, how can we care for ourselves and also care for others? Because they don't know how to do that most of the time. So,
wow, I'm just I'm usually ever at a loss for words, but I'm just sitting here thinking about that human side of them. Because again, we see them as superheroes, or we expect them to be superheroes when we call 911 or when something happens, and so. But they're regular, everyday people just like us.
Absolutely.
And if I know, like, some of this anxiety and things I'm feeling, I can only imagine how that's, exacerbated on their level of what they have to see. What is, you think, one of the most common mental health symptoms that you see from first responders that they experience? Or does it just kind of run the gamut?
It runs the gamut. You'll see the depression and anxiety, of course, a lot more, which if it's not addressed or they don't have a way to kind of help reduce those symptoms, oftentimes turn into PTSD. So you'll see that a lot. Thoughts of self-harm. So just in general, people that experience increased depressive and anxiety symptoms, 3 out of 4 of those people will have a thought that, what would happen if I'm not here or not feeling this emotional pain anymore. So for them, it's even more of a red flag, right? You kind of have to keep your hands on them and the pulse, just kind of asking them, are you okay? And they'll say, yeah, they're okay. But I do believe we need really seasoned and trained clinicians to tap in to what that means for them.
Now, do you all have a number of clinicians that they can see, or is that outsourced, or how does that work?
So at the City of Atlanta, they have the Employee Assistance Program where any city employee can receive short-term counseling. Okay. On the prevention side, they have a public safety behavioral health wellness unit where it's really focused on check-in. So they have wellness visits where they check in with clinicians. They can do a wellness follow-up where they go back in. There's a wellness center where we encourage people to engage in psychoeducation from like, hey, let's do a self-care board, or hey, how do we deal with seasonal affective disorder now that it's the winter time? What's winter blues? We have sand trays. energy pod, which is like a relaxation chair that allows you to
Oh.
not take a nap, but reboot.
Okay.
We have card games, Connect Four, checkers, coffee, tea, mindfulness activities, biofeedback, all the things preventive driven, right?
Mm-hmm.
That will, because, again, we're used to going, giving. But these are ways to kind of replenish ourselves that I think they don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you find those resources are being utilized?
Yes.
Okay, good.
They are now. At
Because
first,
oftentimes,
right.
they can be there,
right.
but we're like, oh, I'm good. I don't need it.
Yeah. No, at first, that's how they were. And then they would come in and they'd be like, oh, this environment is so nice. And you sit down and do a crossword puzzle, and the crossword puzzle have words on there about self-care and,
Mm-hmm.
all the warm and fuzzy words.
Yeah.
And just the space in and of itself has to feel safe.
Yeah.
Right. So creating that space for them has been very, very beneficial. And it's more than one location, so they can do it at the training center, headquarters. Our clinicians try to take programming into their space, so visiting the zone or visiting the fire stations, going over to the E911 operating center. Just, again, the more you normalize the culture of self-care, prevention, being of a healthy mind, healthy spirit, healthy body, because it's holistic. So we also talk about like sleep hygiene, nutrition, what it means to really, be mindful about your day-to-day work-life balance, if that's a real thing. Like how to
say
create
work-life rhythm, because every day is different. And you gotta find
you have to find your
way.
rhythm that works for you, right? What beat are you bouncing to, right? So you're right. Just how to, but putting it on their radar, because typically they wouldn't even think about that, right? So half the battle is psychoeducation and awareness. If I'm aware and in tune with it, if I'm monitoring, we know you monitor behavior, you decrease it, right? So if I'm monitoring all these bad things that I'm doing, not bad things, but all these things that aren't helpful for me, I'm more likely to pay attention to it and reduce it.
Absolutely. Our executive director is, Jewel Gooding. Shout out to Jewel. She talks
Jewel.
a lot about prevention, right? And the importance of it, whether it's youth, young adults, specific communities. The more you know, the more you grow. And so it is so important to teach about prevention.
Absolutely. That's in all aspects of life, with not just first responders, with everyone. And I really, really encourage that in the Black community.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm curious about one other thing. Do you find over the course, I guess, of your 20-year period, or did you find rather where younger first responders were less open or older were less open to mental health support, or is that not a thing? Or
yes, so the younger population is definitely a lot easier to tap into. So if I tell them, hey, put this Calm app on your phone, they're like, oh, okay. You have to speak their language. They really get it. They understand it.
And they're talking more these days.
They're talking more these days. They have parents like myself where they're like, oh, yeah, my mom told me to do, go for a run or, create this self-care board or journal. But, if you're 40, 50 and above, that's not the talk, right? Yeah. So our veterans or law enforcement or police, firefighters that are about to retire, usually you have to coach them into pre-retirement. Like, what does that look like?
Okay.
So we focus a lot on pre-retirement too, like life after being a first responder, because we have to shift their mindset. It's a paradigm shift, really. So, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any new programs that you've seen that are working for first responders? If we have other first responders in other cities outside of Atlanta that you think are working well, or any best practices, whether you're a firefighter, police officer, EMT. And I want to talk too, once we're done with this, about 911.
Yeah, the dispatchers.
Because you don't even think about the 911 dispatchers and all the trauma that they're, having to live with every day.
They are truly our first responder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like literally and figuratively. They get it all, and they have to keep their cool while they do what they can to get the information to the law enforcement and to our firefighters. So that's an untapped population that I think really needs more attention. We try to do the best we can with not only the city, but the other agencies that my practice kind of work with to educate, like, how do we support them as well, right? From the way their workday is set up, to their shift work. People really think about, it's a 24/7 operation. They don't shut down. So how do we make sure they get the appropriate sleep, rest, breaks, so on and so forth, so they're not burned out? How do they mitigate all the things that they're hearing in their ear gate, right? Yes. How do they get that out? So that you just have to really be intentional.
And not bring that trauma home.
Compartmentalization is real.
for any first responder.
But they have to get it out somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So therapy has to be like maintenance,
That's
like
right.
ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to get that out. Because it's therapy and processing out loud, right? It does something chemically to our brain.
Mm-hmm.
When we having all these emotional reactions, we talk about the amygdala gap being open. Processing and working through trauma actually closes it so that you can regulate emotion. Like, I think when people hear from a scientific perspective about what it does to our body and our brain, we only get one brain.
Yeah.
How do we help mitigate, like, all the things that we hear, see, and do specific to trauma?
Right.
So, yeah.
So are there any programs that you think you all are doing or that you've seen? I know.
Yeah, ask that question.
Y'all,
I'm sorry.
I asked 2 questions. Blame it on me.
Blame it on me because I went on another tangent.
No. That was my fault.
So
or anything that you've seen you think is kind of groundbreaking, or other cities that might be doing that's
right.
good.
So wellness is like a buzzword now,
It is.
and everybody's like jumped on the bandwagon. Honestly, over the 20 plus years that I have kind of seen it grow and develop, I am really impressed with the holistic approach of like agencies incorporating without people even knowing that they're doing it, incorporating mental health kind of activity and programming into like working out or, insurance providers giving rebates and bonuses and things, perks, because you actually decided to go to a therapist or engage in yoga or Pilates. I think biofeedback has really, really been helpful because that teaches a person how to reduce heart rate and get their breathing techniques down so that they can not engage in panic attacks or reduce their anxiety. So, across the country, you'll hear about not just internal mental health support, but external support where they're partnering with, like I said, gyms, they're partnering with nutritionists and dietitians, dog therapy, pet therapy. So they'll have like a pet come to the agency so that people can engage in pet therapy. For me, when you say groundbreaking, there's not anything that come to mind. I was like, oh my God, just because programming wise, I've kind of seen a lot and have actually incorporated these things into my practice or incorporated it into, what I'm doing at the city. But it's a lot out there. A lot, like I said, the larger municipalities have been real intentional about making sure they incorporate wellness programming. But it's still something that's heavily needed. Yeah. Funding oftentimes play a role because when you think about public safety, it's public sector. So unless it's grant funded or they might put it, really mental health programming, it might be a bottom line item where it should be a top line item. So that's usually the challenge. Like, how do we pay for these things? Yeah. But I will say the federal government have tried to do a lot as it pertains to grants specific to mental health.
That's good. That's good. Do you find a difference in the trauma experience or trauma levels for police versus firefighters versus EMT? I'm sure they all have their own heightened level of trauma that they deal with.
I just it looks different
for each group.
Yeah. But it's all complex. So you may have officers kind of talk about the not being able to turn off, right? The anxiety piece of always having to be kind of hypersensitive or ready to engage. Because again, it might be a traffic ticket, but then it might turn out into a shootout because someone didn't. It's someone with a warrant, or so that could
be so devastating. And think about it, right?
Yeah.
Just
think about the riskiest call they get is the domestic.
Right. You don't know what's going to happen. Yep. And so what happens to your adrenaline at that point? Like, how are you staying calm and collected in that moment and not letting your emotions take over? That in and of itself is a lot.
So most academies, most training centers have incorporated emotion regulation or stress inoculation training. Okay. So I've also helped develop some of that in some of the agencies here in the metro area. Like, how do you mitigate that? How do you regulate that emotion?
And remain calm through it all.
Right. It's actually a required course with POST, which is their governing kind of guideline for training. Okay. So emotion regulation, how to de-escalate a situation. So they receive training on it, but it's nothing like in the moment.
Yeah, and I'll just say, oftentimes we hear a lot of chatter whether it's online, people complaining. But I just want to thank, the first responders who are out there risking their lives every single day.
Every day.
And sometimes putting their mental health challenges on hold or to the side or not dealing with it because you're trying to make sure we're okay. So if nobody told y'all thank you, I'm telling you thank you today.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. It's just so much that you have to deal with. And another thing that that came to mind for me is grief. That the first responders, how do you handle your job when you're dealing with the loss of a spouse or a child or a family member or best friend or, how do we handle grief on top of all that trauma?
Right. So we spend a lot of time just kind of self-reflecting on, it's kind of like an existential approach, right? So what does a call or any type of incident mean for me as it pertains to grief, or how am I triggered? So even within debriefings, we talk about complicated grief, right? So what it means when you're grieving your own stuff and trying to figure out, like, how do I deal with this CPR call that I just get? We deal a lot more with the complicated grief piece with firefighters, just because most agencies have firefighters that are also EMTs. So most of the time they're running med calls, not fire calls.
Okay.
So you're going to probably run more med calls than putting out
what's
fires.
Interesting too? It took me, I don't know, I was an adult when I realized that firefighting was much more than just the firefighters that you see.
Absolutely.
And the work that you see, right? It's not always putting out a fire. It's a medical emergency.
Correct.
And we don't, a lot of times we don't know that.
Right. So they run more med calls or just as many med calls as they do fire calls.
Wow.
So having to be trained about like running lines and, they show up at the car accident and the jaws of life. It's getting people out the car and they're having to figure out how to really, save their life, right? So when you have, someone, a fatality from a car accident or a fire fatality, which is a really, really hard one, right? So they usually take that one pretty hard. Anything dealing with a child, I've had, them reflect on the fact that, I saw that 7-year-old and it reminded me of my niece, my nephew, or my child, my own child. So that's usually the piece that we talk about when we do the debriefings. I know people talk a lot about CISM, critical incident stress management, and the debriefing right after a critical incident. But really, I think the most important piece, and there's a lot of research and science behind it now, about is CISM really important or how that works. But really, it's about what we do after the call. So after the call, you still have to find a way to provide someone with the resources, ongoing engagement, giving them that prevention, making sure that acute stress doesn't develop into PTSD.
Right.
So that's what really the debriefing process is about, whether it be for something that was critical or just in general if someone's triggered because it reminded them of someone they lost. How do we grieve properly? How do we go through these stages? Everyone's stage look different, right? And we may not be necessarily grieving a death. We could be just grieving a loss of relationship. Or a loss of, our child leaving us or going away or so. So how do we deal with those stages? What does it look like for us? And how do we take care of ourselves in the process? So.
This is important stuff today. I hope you are enjoying this episode as much as I am. Again, we're tuned in with Dr. Carla Moore, and we're talking about first responders and how they care for their mental health. We only have a couple more questions as we continue to close out. Any thoughts on your end of what you would like to see in terms of the future for the care for first responders and how they look at mental health and being able to have the preventative care, the post-care, the treatment, even when they retire? Like, what does the future look like for you and what do you want to see, rather?
I really would like to see, like I said, funding. I would like to see more focus or philanthropy around people giving to mental wellness and overall wellness, really, for first responders, and really having it to where it's a formalized process.
Okay.
So when I say that, so for example, like you have treatment centers when people have substance use issues.
Right.
So I'm thinking of wellness centers that really are more preventive than reactive.
Catered to first
responders. That's actually, I don't want to say too much because it's a goal and vision of mine.
Oh, awesome. All right. We not going.
I just need the money. Whoever's watching.
That's right.
Or whoever's listening.
Okay.
Right. So, to have, my practice is called More to Life.
Oh.
Why? More to Life Counseling and Consulting. It's geared towards like all health and wellness and really meeting people where they are to make sure they have a mentally well and holistically well life. But my specialty being first responders, I really would love to have a More to Life Public Safety Wellness Center.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, I believe that if people, just kind of how you do at Kaiser, it's like a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
So you can come and see your nutritionist, your dietitian, your this, your that, really focused on the specialties of first responders. And I have a lot of just networking relationships with people where you see all these different entities, like you're saying, like, oh, this is here, this is there. But literally having certain centers around the country that focus on preventive care, that's really my ultimate goal.
I love that. Well, we're going to go ahead and claim that. Yes, and speak that into existence. As young people say.
I know.
Lastly, what any final words to people in the first responder community regarding their mental health and wellness? What would you, if you could just look at the camera and just speak directly to them, knowing all that you know, all that you've seen, all the people whose lives you've touched in this space, but what would you say to them now regarding their mental health and wellness?
We see you, we hear you, we value you. But you're no good to us if you're no good to yourself. It is very, very important for you to engage in a holistic way of taking care of yourself, both mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. And so really it's okay to put yourself first. Really, it's self-preservation. It's not being selfish. So, but we truly care about you because we know how much you care about us. I have a passion for this, so I truly appreciate and value everything that you do to make sure our citizens, not only in the city of Atlanta, but in our state and our country and our world, because sometimes you actually have to provide mutual aid to other countries. So we are greatly appreciative of the work that you do. We know it's a skill set that requires a lot of heart and soul. And so we ask for you to tap into what you need in order to thrive and do well, not just survive, but thrive and do well, and understand that there's so much more to life when you are helping others.
Amen to that. This episode really touched me in a lot of ways, and I hope it touched all of you that are listening or tuning in or viewing. Thank you, Dr. Carla Moore. Thank you for the work that you do. And I'm sure that we didn't really even get into this, even the family members, right, of first responders. Maybe I'll make that one of our upcoming episodes so we can talk to families of first responders and how they care for their mental health as well as the families. And so, yeah, I think we're going to make that episode.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for joining us. How can we stay in touch with you? How can we support not only the work that you do with the city, but in your own private practice?
Well, if you're interested in learning any more about how the city of Atlanta operates specifically to mental health support for our first responders, you can go to atlantagA.gov, www.atlantagA.gov. Those services are housed in the Department of Human Resources, so that's where you will find information about the Employee Assistance Program and the Public Safety Behavioral Health Wellness Unit. My private practice, which has a number of clinicians specifically that provide support to first responders, you will just visit my website at www.mooretolifecc.com. That's MOORETOLIFECC.com. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. And I am Shanti Das, the host of the Silence to Shame podcast. Again, thank you all so much for listening, for viewing and tuning in. Make sure you rate and subscribe and forward the link in this podcast episode on to friends and family. If you'd like to learn more about the organization, you can go to www.silencetoshame.com or check us out on social media at Silence to Shame, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. We're on all platforms. And of course, our audio podcast is available on all audio podcast platforms and on YouTube. So thank you for tuning in today to Understanding Wellness for First Responders. As I mentioned, this entire podcast season is dedicated to first responders. So we have some incredible upcoming guests. So stay tuned for that. Thank you, Dr. Moore. I know you're going to recommend a couple of guests for us.
Absolutely, I will.
Lots to tune in for. 2026 is exciting. I hope your year is starting off great. And as we always say, make sure you take time, save a life, and silence the shame. And as you all know, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, so we totally operate off donations, grant funding, unrestricted donations. If you feel so moved to make a donation, please go to silencetheshame.com and click the donate button. No amount is too small or too big. We just appreciate your support so that we can continue to do this critical work and bring these important conversations to light regarding mental health in our community. So thank you in advance for your donation.